Chicago isn't just fighting about bike lanes, it's fighting about how people actually live. From Archer Avenue in Brighton Park to Pratt Avenue in Rogers Park to Clark Street and 18th Street, these are just some of the protected bike lanes rolling out across the city. And the reaction has been intense. For some residents, these projects are long overdue safety upgrades. For others, they mean congestion, lost parking, and changes forced on neighborhoods without consent. What's fascinating is this: the same arguments are showing up in completely different parts of Chicago. Same fears, same frustrations, same divide. Today, I'm going to break down what bike projects Chicago is actually building, how you can track them yourselves, how they're funded, and why this debate matters a lot if you're thinking about moving to Chicago. Because, probably most importantly, whether you're a car dependent person or someone looking for a bike-friendly, car-optional lifestyle, these bike lane decisions are quietly reshaping where relocation buyers and sellers choose to live. Good people, urbanists, hello. So I've got a confession to make. I'm not the biggest fan, or at least was. Let me rephrase that. Was not the biggest fan of bikers, right? Particularly when I had somewhere to go and needed, somewhere to go. They're riding right on through the stop signs, and obviously the onus is on the person with the 4,000 pound piece of metal to obviously be cognizant not only of bikers but strollers and people walking. But as I learn more and more about urbanism, and oh, by the way, today's video topic, if you haven't figured it out, is the bike lane battle that's dividing Chicago. Is, more of an appreciation of not only bikers, but, living in the city. That is a trade-off. You have to be cognizant of your neighbor. Not to say that people in like the suburbs don't do that, but it's more apparent, more visible. Have to be cognizant of your neighbor. Everyone has to share those lanes. And how we're going to break today's video topic down, I'm going to basically kind of start with how these bike projects, there's all these various bike projects. Originally, I was going to go through three of them. Well, the three that I mentioned in my intro, the 18th and Clark, which I guess technically is being removed, and we'll get to that later in the video. The one on Pratt, and then, of course, the big one, the controversial one, Archer Avenue in Brighton Park. But I'm just going to give you an overview and kind of let you guys do it on your leisure. A really, really helpful site from CDOT, the Chicago Department of Transportation. It's going to show you where the planned bike projects are and what stage they are, what status, active or, going to be almost completed. You'll be able to look up those bike projects by street name and their status. You're also going to be able to learn, and it's important to know for everybody. I didn't realize there's multiple, about 5 or 6. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, technically 6. 6 type of bikeway options, right? They are protected bike lanes, neighborhood greenways, advisory lanes, buffered lanes, shared lanes, and off-street trails. So that is what I'm going to do. The first thing, just so it kind of makes sense, I'm going to make sure. Let's go ahead and the magic of sharing the screen. Let's get over here and boom. Okay. There you go. Really, really helpful. You can see up there at the top the link, Chicago Gov City /EN/sites has complete streets Chicago home. This is the bike program. And you can see here, and a really, really important stat here, of these 6 options, 85%, you see where the cursor is, of planned projects are protected bike lanes and neighborhood greenways. I originally thought that protected bike lanes was going to be the choice going forward for CDOT to use as the preferred option, but that's not the case. But that could be because of the concrete needed. It's a little more, it's more protected. It's great for bikers, but obviously there's a cost consideration. We'll talk about funding. Don't worry, we'll get to that. So here is the network. These 4 types. So first thing we're going to do is I want to kind of go through the types that I mentioned. And the great thing about this site, again, right here is the site. I'm going to go ahead and let's see if you can, let's see. You might not be able to see the site. I'm going to go, I have the link. I'm going to share it. I have it copied here and I'll share that link. But let's go through these. You have number 1 here, the protected lane, a dedicated space for people biking that is physically separated from vehicles on higher traffic streets. The one thing about that is, as you can see, many times, I mean, just kind of logically, if you think about it, you would prefer to have the bike lane next to the sidewalk, in between the sidewalk and if there is still parking, because then the cars would protect the bike people and the sidewalk people from the oncoming traffic. But a lot of times that lane is removed, just depending on what type. So you can see all these types here, raised here. So this is complete protection. You have here, it is technically on North Broadway, just a little bit of a bump, and you have the cars. But a lot of times those bike lanes are on the inside, exposed to the traffic. So it just really, really depends. Lane separation can be created with concrete barriers, plastic barrier curbs, or bollards, and by shifting parking lanes further from the curb, right? Shifting the parking lanes further to the curb, because that, again, that'd be the ideal. Your greenways. So if you didn't know, Grace Avenue by Wrigley, I believe Wellington, that's a controversial one, which is really, I use that a lot when I do have a car, right? And I am a realtor. Well, by the way, right? Just so you know, right? Oh, I didn't introduce myself, right? AD, right? Anant Deoras, AD. 13 years doing what I love. I'm an urbanism realtor helping buyers, sellers, and investors. So got that out of the way. But yeah, I cut through Wellington all the time. I love that, is getting through and getting over to Ashland and going west. But those 2 are on the way. So be on the lookout. I've done videos on them. But if you simply did Grace Street Greenway, Lakeview, and Wellington Street Greenway, that would technically be 3,000. I mean, technically it's Lakeview too. They will pop up. But these are the greenways. So kind of not less protection, but with a few simple upgrades, residential streets can become low-stress alternatives to arterial roadways. Priority for cyclists is created with traffic calming motor vehicles. A lot of times they may have raised sections, raised street bumper to slow traffic, and also have lower, like 25 miles, 30 miles, usually like 25. Special pavement markers, sometimes facilitating 2-way bike travel on 1-way side streets. So many times there are 1-way. I know in the case of Wellington, there's a portion that's 1-way, but a lot of it is 2-way. So that is 2. You have here, this off-street trails would be your lakefront trail right by LSD. Any of like 312 River Run out by North Center. Those are away from all car traffic. Those are off-street trails. And then another one here. You guys can read through this. Another bike lanes here, dedicated on street, demarcated with signs, buffered bike, additional space. It just has additional space, but it's not as protected. As you can see right here, the one on South Halstead, you don't have the raised concrete. So you can go through that. So that is the types of bike. So Existing, I'm going to talk about the existing map, which is really, really helpful map a little bit later when I talk about the real estate component. But here is your planned bike projects. So let's kind of go through here. This is really, really great. It talks about the mileage, how many miles. And here is a really, guys, this is really, really super helpful. This, you can go through here and it has a little explanation of how to read this. You can go street by street and actually see the status. So, what you can do is you can go down to facility. You can filter. So if you see right here, view the projects. You can enter the name. So that's actually the featured one, the one we'll be talking about. We do Archer, boom, it pops up. So, and you can get all the information and it'll tell you the status of it. So it's really, really super helpful. I'll go back here. Okay. So again, you can go to this site. All right. And here is just a really another way you can of filtering going through. There's so many that are in development, already active, and some that are coming soon. So it's a really helpful way to see. So I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. So that is the website, and the website here, I'm going to write it for you folks. Let's copy and let's there you go. So I'm going to keep that running for a little bit. If you look at the bottom of the screen, that is the link. You can take a screenshot of that and peruse that site. So that gives you a little overview of kind of the bike projects, the bike program website to kind of give you an idea. Now we got to talk about the pros and cons, right? So pros and cons here of protected bike lanes specifically, right? Are used, as I mentioned, to physically separate cyclists from motor vehicle traffic. But of course, reactions vary widely across neighborhoods. And this is mainly has to do with protected bike lanes, which is the real controversial one. So, of course, some pros here that I have listed. Protected bike lanes improve safety by creating physical separation between cars and cyclists. Okay. They also can slow vehicle speeds and reduce severe crashes. And they make biking more accessible for children, seniors, and less confident riders. I have some comments here. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let me okay. Then I'm going to add to the stage. Okay. So we talked about the bike projects. Here's just a kind of quick outline. And good folks, this is kind of how I'm going to be doing these this is kind of a hybrid. This is this is being recorded now. This video is between a hybrid between a video and a live stream. I am going to be going forward. I'll be doing one of these recorded videos and one live stream. But for the immediate short term, I'll be doing 2 of these a week, both recorded. But I'm going to create this really helpful outline. Again, you can take screenshots if you want. Before I do that, I'm going to remove that. Well, let's go. Okay. So if you can see here, we went through. Here are the pros. I mentioned among the pros. It's really interesting. If you can see here at the bottom, some of the comments. So obviously, right, I'm still using Facebook, right? A lot of it is kind of part of my job. Of course, there's a lot of bad, and there's a lot of bad. But no, there is obviously great to reconnect with people. But some of these local neighborhood groups are just wild. So this one, obviously, right here, paint is an infrastructure. So the argument, right, is a lot of the kind of car folks are saying just throw some paint on there. And it's not really protecting. Again, you still have got 3,500-pound metal versus a bike. Cars just parking it. And that's another thing is you have with the, advent of the Lyft and the Uber, not to mention all the Door Dashers, what happens? They got to go in front of a restaurant. And of course, they're going to park on the bike lane because it shoots out from the parking spot. And then bikers have to go around it. And then, of course, accidents happen. A lot of times is those DoorDash people, and I'm guilty of this. You don't look, you don't turn, and your door opens. You got to be careful. You got to be cognizant, right? Another comment here, if the city made it safer to ride, more people would actually bike. Because the one argument of folks or people on the con side is saying, well, people, sometimes people say half a year is bad weather. Technically, come on in Chicago, if you're relocating here, it's a quarter, maybe 20%. And really, really bad is like what's going to happen here. I'm doing this video towards the end of January is going to be like -20, -30. Obviously, only crazies are going to be biking. I'm not one of them, but they're out there. But really, realistically, 80-85%. So it's really 15%. And even then, there's some people that are still going to bike. So, but if they made it safer, even more people would. So that's a really good argument. So just because you may not have the numbers, and to this point, this Uptown residents point, if they actually made it safer, more people would ride. Then finally, here they say protected intersections are standard in countries with far fewer traffic deaths. Because that's really the big thing, right? To reduce not just death, but injuries. And that kind of perfectly segues. I'm going to show some of the, before I get into the cons, I want to show a graphic real quick. Let me, I'm going to remove that. Let's bring up the graphic. There is a group, it's a volunteer group, Southwest Collective. So when this Archer is a real controversial PBL, protected bike lane project that's happening right now. As you can see here, that first phase is wrapping up. But they had a lot of kind of workshops set up on the street, trying to educate people, because a lot of times it's communication. And a lot of the bike people, they have some really good points. I'm not really necessarily taking a side. I'm going to be sharing. It may seem, and I'm happy to have a conversation anytime. Like, let me know, guys, if you're, right now, let me know. You guys, the car people or the bike people, or you're a little of both. I feel I'm a little of both, but I don't bike. I primarily walk and use the car. Obviously, I support people that bike. I just don't personally bike much in the city. So, but anyways, this Archer for everybody, right? So you see this stat right here, this really, really glaring. Look at that. From 19 to 2023, 1,426 people. 7 people, unfortunately, were killed. And of course, 2 times more death than any typical community area. So this is in this particular area, but this also, every area that has that bike lanes has their own story. This just happens to be the one in Brighton Park, the Kedzie Archer Avenue project. So they have the timeline here. So I thought this was very interesting. And you see here, 60% of all crashes on Archer are related to turning and a lack of turn lanes, and 70% of drivers who have hit someone walking or biking live outside Brighton Park community. So it is, and it's just true. It's used to get from point A to B, and it's not a lot of community people. And what's happening is they're doing what's called a road diet, which that basically means just reducing 4 to 3 lanes, because that one lane will account for bike lanes. And then what's happening is people are impatient. They start using the side streets. And so now you have people in communities are having more traffic. So as I said, it's a lot of stuff going on. Of course, there are pros and cons for it. I just wanted to show this graphic. If you guys want a copy of this, just read. You can find it on Facebook. I just thought this was very interesting. This is obviously property of the CDOT, and I believe the Southwest Collective created this graphic. So interesting graphic. But let's go back to here and talk about some of the cons. So cons. Whoops, let's go back. Residents often cite traffic, congestion, parking loss, and confusion at intersections, right? Construction disruption and unclear communication. I mentioned communication probably that's probably 90% of scenarios. They have to communicate these projects. People are on their phone all the time, like multiple times. If you say 10 times, you got to do it 20 times. Just like probably everything in life, it has to be proactive communication. Some designs are viewed as rushed or poorly adapted to local street conditions. And then this fourth one is interesting: emergency vehicles. What happens, right, if an ambulance has to go through? You having a reduction of lanes. So I have an article. This is from Street Blog Chicago. They're very pro bike. I don't necessarily want to say bike bias, but John Greenfield owns that, or is one of the editors of that site. Yet he does have a lot of great common sense information. But he had an article where they reached out to the department, Chicago Fire Department, and there was no known issues of streets with bike lanes and issues with fire personnel getting through. So now that's ambulance. I don't know about fire trucks, but ambulance, there was none. So I thought that was very interesting. So number 3 here. So we've talked about the bike projects, how to search bike projects. We talked about the pros and cons. And now funding, because obviously everything is dollars and cents. We are basically broke here in the city of Chicago. I will have future videos, particularly folks that are interested about relocating and purchasing in the wonderful city of Chicago, which is obviously right. I help people every day with that, but you got to understand, we have a lot of expenses and not enough revenue coming in. So the always concern is, how are these projects being funded? So what I found here in my research, a lot of the common funding sources, federal transportation safety grants. Now, of course, the Trump administration has been threatening to pull that funding, and they said 2-1. Like I said, we're in the 3rd week here of January, so be curious to see what happens. Hopefully that's not done, because then I don't know what's going to happen. Is it going to halt current projects and stop future projects? Only time will tell. State of Illinois transportation funds, and then CDOT capital improvement budgets tied to street reconstruction. The interesting thing is a lot of these bike projects, you can see this next sentence is key. In many cases, bike lanes are built as part of a larger roadway, bus, and accessibility projects. Federal funds used for transportation cannot be redirected to unrelated city expenses. You got to use it or you lose it. Okay. So it's baked into there. So it's not necessarily. Now, this last one, the CDOT capital improvement budgets, what that amount is, I'm not quite sure. That could be tied to some city allocation of our taxes, but everything seems to be on the federal and state level. And of course, they say here, for the local tax dollars are used for street resurfacing, maintenance, snow removal, and project management. And of course, the street resurfacing, a lot of this stuff is related to cars, cars. And that's why a lot of people, like another one of the big issues is, well, bikers aren't paying their fair share. They're two different, means of transportation. That one's kind of tough. I mean, me paying insurance and paying all the fees and paying the city stickers. I mean, it can add up. It can definitely add up with owning a car. So that is something where, maybe if they instituted some type of, like, I don't know, bike fee, my bike folks out there, I mean, what would you think? Comment below. Would you be willing to pay some, nominal amount? I don't know what the amount would be, $100 a year or something to help. But as I mentioned, right, it's not technically taxpayer money funding these, but with the current administration, who knows what's going to happen. So I thought that was very interesting. And of course, finally, how does this all kind of wrap up to my main expertise and my main focus, of course, with urbanism, the trendy of walking, biking, and transit? How does the biking element, that one of the Holy Trinity, how does it affect real estate? So you can see right here, right? If you're a car dependent buyer, reduced on-street parking, perceived traffic congestion, and changes to familiar driving patterns. This is what I'm saying is, right, that people, I mean, everything, it doesn't matter if you're 2 years old or 80 years old, you want to have that consistency. But when the Grace Greenway is thinking about being built and you have the Wellington Greenway, that's going to cut in. A lot of people use those east-west routes. That's going to change. For bike-oriented or car-optional buyers, protected bike lanes are often seen as quality of life, safety upgrade, and a single of long-term neighborhood investment. A lot of obvious things, right? But it's really interesting. A lot of people, even people that have cars, I know a lot of my past clients, many of them also had bikes. And there's many of the condo buildings, the 2 and 3 flats, they have secured bike storage. A lot of them have it as part of the condos because it's just very popular. And what the great news is we're seeing a lot more bike parking versus car parking, which is great news. Not in all projects, but a lot of projects. If you didn't know, I have a short form channel, both on TikTok and Instagram. So I use resources like Yimby.com. That's Yes in My Backyard. Streets blogs that John Greenfield is a great resource. I use a lot of these articles and I do quick videos talking about popular projects. And what I've been noticing, not zero parking, but reduced parking, obviously affordable units, and then plenty of room for bike storage and bike parking. So you have increased appeal of urban transit-oriented buyers, decreased appeal of buying, prioritizing easy car access. This is the thing. There isn't like an answer. It's going to depend on how your lifestyle is. So I know it can get very heated. I just wish we can kind of just back up. But this battle is going to continue on. And unfortunately, it is going to divide. What we don't want, as I wrap up here, we don't want what's happening on 18th Street and Clark. I may have to do a separate video, but the Alderman Dowell, she used her aldermanic prerogative, and basically they installed the PBLs, the private bike lanes. She's having them ripped out. Now, putting them in, I imagine there was some state and federal funding, but I haven't been able to find information, but it seems like common sense. We're going to have to pay for that. So that's insane. We don't want that. That's why we want to have that proactive communication. What I'm hoping here was a lot of these bike lanes, and I'm going to include myself in there. I'm going to be perfectly honest. There's going to be some growing pains on the short term, but I think in the long term, it's going to benefit many, many folks and hopefully get increased bike ridership. Probably not me, got bad knees, but it would hopefully increase bike ridership. But I want to leave you with this, right? As protected bike lanes, are protected bike lanes making Chicago safer? Or is the city struggling with how these projects are implemented? So what say you? Comment below. I'm Anant Deoras, AD, Urbanism Realtor, helping buyers, sellers, and investors. This is a bike project. I'm excited to give you guys more content. If you have an idea or any ideas for content, related to urbanism, biking, walking, transit, the lifestyle, let me know. My next video, we're going to be talking about River West. There's going to be a Bally's there, right? That will be our next video, River West urbanism. Have a great day, folks.